Let's just talk, though, briefly about Reginald D Hunter, American comic. You'll have seen him on the telly. I've seen him live in Edinburgh. Very funny guy. I knew someone who was a friend of his, so we ended up having a drink together, all of us. I really liked him. But he's been embroiled in an anti-Semitism row. This after he made a joke about Israel at his Edinburgh Fringe Festival show, and it's described by one theatre critic in the room as the ugliest Edinburgh Fringe moment ever. Basically, he made a joke about watching a recent Channel 5 documentary. It was about domestic abuse, and the woman was telling a story about how she was ill-treated by her husband. And he said, "My God, it's like being married to Israel." The audience laugh, but a couple in the front row, one shouted out, "It's not funny." Now, it turns out the couple were Israeli. This then prompts audience members to swear at them, to shout out genocidal and told, "You're not welcome." Others shouted "Free Palestine" at them. They then basically, there were slow hand claps, boos. They were told they were part of the toxic mix. Basically, rather than saying to the audience, "Oi, these guys are entitled to shout, that's not funny," or whatever. Basically, he didn't do anything. One of the couple was disabled. They then left the room. Obviously, it would have taken some time. And Reginald D Hunter openly laughed at them and said nothing as audience members continued to jeer an Israeli couple leaving after that joke. Now, I find that absolutely astonishing. And yes, blatantly anti-Semitic. He's allowed to make a joke about Israel. Got no issue with that. I think they were probably foolish to have shouted out at a comedy show, but to have not called out the disgusting, outrageous behaviour of the audience members, I think is shocking.
Well, it is. I mean, people are entitled to heckle at these kind of events, and it's almost expected. He should have handled that so much better. They were entitled to their opinion. But when the rest of the audience are then turning on them and following up with pretty much anti-Semitic tropes and all those,
if it was about any other group,
then
if it was about any other group of people,
absolutely.
So why is a couple who are Israeli? Why are they responsible for the guy? I mean, I'm not responsible for anything our government does.
No, no.
We're constantly told, aren't we, that the Palestinians aren't responsible for what Hamas does, but an Israeli couple who are at the Edinburgh Fringe apparently responsible for every bomb that is dropped on Gaza.
But nobody stuck up and said, you know, right, that's out of order, you've got to pipe down to the rest of the audience. So they were allowed to get away with it. He's been allowed to get away with it. He's openly laughing at a disabled couple or one disabled person. It's not a good look. Now, I think he's quite funny, but in this instance,
he's going to get a free pass for this, though, because it's an acceptable viewpoint on the left, and let's be honest, because he's black.
And
because in the victim Olympics, he never plays that card. He doesn't play. He doesn't. He's not. He's genuinely a funny guy. But I just find it extraordinary. If people were shouting racist abuse against someone who was black, he wouldn't find that acceptable.
The audience would have been arrested. The comedian would have been arrested, and that would have been, you know, we would have all had to hang our heads in shame. And the same doesn't apply for an Israeli couple.
I mean, it's just outrageous. I'm sorry, Reginald. I met you. You seem like a good bloke. If you didn't call that out when it was happening, as a member of the audience, if I'd been at that show, I'd have stood up and called that out, and I would have happily done that, even if it wrecked your show, because I would never have stood by. And you're on stage with a microphone and you don't call it out, then you're promoting anti-Semitism. It's as simple as that. You're allowing it, feeding it, laughing at it. I mean, you know, these people, they don't have to like every one of your jokes. That's me. But and you're allowed to make it. I would never ever want to censor your jokes, Reginald. However, you cannot allow other audience members and laugh along when they are basically shouting anti-Semitic things at two people in your audience. That's just, sorry, you're part of the problem, mate. You're part of the problem. 11:31 is the time. Let's really quickly go to another phone call. 0344 499 1000. This is Godfrey, who is in London. And Godfrey, you want to talk more about this total lack of care in the community for Valdo Callacane, which led to the deaths of those three innocent people, Barnaby Grace and Ian Coates.
Yes, good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
Nottingham Healthcare Trust have come in for a lot of criticism today, which may or may not be true. But the real fault here is a political failure. Valdo Callacane was born in 1991 in Guinea-Bissau. He moved to Madeira with his parents. They then moved to Lisbon, Portugal, and he entered the United Kingdom in 2007 when Tony Blair was Prime Minister and Jackie Smith was Home Secretary. This is political failure, because we should be far more concerned about the people we allow into this country.
My understanding from the panorama last night was that there was no evidence that he'd had any mental health problems before he arrived in the country. And he came legally.
What I'm saying is that our borders were opened under the Blair administration, allowing almost anybody who wanted to come here to come here. And at the moment, with the people crossing the channel, again, there's very little supervision and knowledge of where these people
absolutely. I'm telling you, the illegal migrants, absolutely. But he came with his mother and his brother legally. His brother, I think, was an Oxford student at the time as well. But no, I think a lot of people will be concerned again. You know, who do we let into the country? Godfrey, appreciate your call. Thank you so much indeed. Coming up next, we're going to talk more about this with human rights lawyer Mark Stevens. He's going to be live in the studio. More from Claire Pearsall as well.